people never do this. Even very wealthy people I know don't do this. And I get them to do it and they're shocked at the results. Get a piece of paper. You don't need a computer for this. You just write down over a 90-day period your sources of income, whatever it is, whatever you make. I don't care if you're hustling on the side or you're a waitress or you're, Uber driver, I don't care. That's your income. The other side is what you spent money on in the last 90 days, your rent, food, whatever, whatever you buy. And if they're equal, that's good. But 90% of the time, you're spending more than you make. And you're going into debt, usually on a credit card of 21%. That's what destroys people. They just don't live within their means. So I really focus on that. It's all about how much do I bring in, how much do I spend? What you want to do is save about 20% of your income, put it into the market over a 20, 30-year period. It's going to make 6 to 8% a year, and you're going to retire, even if you have the average salary of $54,000 in America, you'll have $1.5 million in the bank. That's how you have to do it. So my relationship with money has always been about being careful not to waste it. My mother, Georgette, taught me, and this really probably flows into why I buy these watches, don't buy crap. She used to only buy one Chanel jacket a year, but a really good one. She loves Chanel. And when she died, there was a cat fight for her clothing amongst the women in my family because they were now vintage Chanels that were worth way more than what she paid for them. So if most people, you go look in your closet, it's full of crap you don't need. You bought crap that you just don't wear. You wore it once and it's just crap. Don't buy the crap. Buy the good stuff and just buy less of it. And when you look at something, don't buy something that you can't afford. If you can't afford a watch, you should never go into debt for a watch. That's stupid. You should earn a watch. If you have a successful outcome on something, go buy yourself a watch to make that a reminder of that unique situation in your life.
What about for the people who say to you, well, I am budgeting and I'm spending just modestly, but still at the end of the month, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. What's your advice for them?
Stop buying coffee for $5.50. I can walk around with anybody for a day and show you that they're wasting 15% of their money, sometimes 20. Stupid stuff. You go to work, you spend $15 on a sandwich. What are you, an idiot? It costs you 99 cents to make a sandwich at home and bring it with you. So what if you bring it with you? Bring your own water if you have to, or your own drink, or bring your own coffee mug. You start to add that up every day, it's a ton of money. Most people, particularly working in metropolitan cities that are just starting out on their job, making their first $60,000, piss away about $15,000 a year on stupid stuff. And that's what they should stop doing.
What about for the other side of the equation, to make more money?
Side hustle, always. Whatever you're doing, these days there's so many side hustles, just getting social media people to edit this podcast well, just getting people to cut commercials or do all of our social media or tell our stories for our companies or just manage our TikTok accounts for all of our different activities. Those people used to be able to get for $25,000, $30,000 a year. I've got guys working on my team that are servicing us and 2 other companies making $250,000 a year. That's the ultimate side hustle because they're really good at writing, they're good at storytelling, they're good at cinematography, they're good at photography. And that's a skill set that nobody thought you needed 5 years ago, but now everything's social media, including large corporate messaging. So if you have a really good skill set.
I feel like with Upwork or Fiverr, anyone that has a skill can just go on and monetize it.
Yeah, why not?
If you don't have it, you can learn it.
But why not? And be flexible. I don't believe in the 9-to-5 job market anymore. None of my team works in an office anymore because they don't want to. We have people working for us all around the world. We somehow are very, very productive, and that's the new economy. I get thousands of people that want to join us because they know one of my other team members and say, look, I want to be part of your team, and I pay well.
A lot of people say that making your first 100,000 is the hardest. What would you say to people who want to go out and make their first 100,000? What's the best path to do that right now?
Saving 15% of your paycheck each week. That's the key. That is really the key. If you really want to make $100,000 and do it, relatively quickly, basically save 15% of your paycheck and put it into an index in the market. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, but over time you generally make 6 to 8%. That compounds. Within 7 years, you'll get to your $100,000.
If you had to say, this is the one thing I want everyone to do to be better with their money, what would that one thing be?
It's along the lines of just being intentional with your money. So like on a tactical sense, a budget, I mean, I think that, when you win with money, it's not on accident. And I think a lot of people who maybe are struggling or living paycheck to paycheck, or they feel like, I just feel like I can't get ahead. This like deep belief that money's not going to just appear, in your savings account, right? Like there has to be this level of proactiveness and intentionality. And I just think the monthly budget, it's just so helpful to be able to say, okay, here's my paycheck. Where is it going? And I want to be the one that's telling it where to go versus it just leaving and I have no clue, right? So I always think about like during tax season, especially when you look back and you're like, oh, wow, I made this much money last year. And if you have the big question mark of where did it all go? Then that means maybe intentionality isn't part of your plan. So I think the one thing is just being purposeful, being intentional.
Do you like a pen and paper budget or Excel sheet or an app?
Yeah, I use an app called EveryDollar because it connects to my bank account. And so I like that because the transactions come in and you can kind of drag and drop them to the category. But you can do pen and paper, you can do, anything. And so that's what I like about this part of personal finance too, is it's, fifth grade math. It's like income minus expenses plus giving and saving like should equal zero. And it's just, you're just giving every dollar a name.
And what about people who say, okay, I've tried the budget and still at the end of the month, I'm left with close to zero. Where should they be looking to cut their expenses?
Yes. So this is always an interesting conversation because I feel like, especially in America, a lot of our, wants have slipped into needs. And we just feel like, no, we have to have this standard of living or this exactly the way I think life should be, and all of that is a need. But true needs are your housing, so rent or your mortgage, utilities, transportation, and food. Like that's it, right? And even within those categories, there can be a lot of wants within those, right? So you want to really strip down as much as possible. So cutting expenses for sure on things, whether it's subscriptions or delivery services, like things that kind of end up being a part of your life that again, you associate with like, well, this is the rhythm of my life and this is how it's always been. But I challenge that so much where I'm like, hey, look to see seriously where any amount of money can help because, the average, it's like 40% of Americans can't cover $1,000 emergency in cash. Like that's where we are right now. And so any amount of money that you can find is huge. And obviously bringing more income in is helpful on the other side of the equation, cutting those expenses, which is hard and no one wants to, right? I'm like, it's not fun to live a certain lifestyle. And then you're like, oh, I have to go down. Like I have to cut some of that. But for long-term game of just having savings in the bank, having a level of safety and a level of peace and not stress, it's worth cutting for now.
Do you think of these things as short-term changes? I mean, could someone say short-term, cut everything besides your absolute needs so that in the long term, you'll be better off financially? Or should we really be thinking about this as like implementing these long-term changes?
Yeah, I like to think of it, I'm a spender naturally. So I want to say short-term for you, for people, because I'm like, I want you to be able to enjoy your life. But also, I think what is amazing, people, I can live without things that I thought I had to have. And then suddenly stuff and all the things that, you had that you cut out, you realize, oh, I can live life like this. I can probably lower a level of my lifestyle, again, just to have that margin. And so whether, a year from now, if you have a raise, maybe you pay off debt and you have more income coming in that you're actually keeping versus sending out into payments, whatever it may be that, eventually, hopefully, gradually, you can go back to a certain level of lifestyle that you want. But I always want you to stay within your means and never exceed that.
I like doing something with my audience called the happiness test, where we go through the budget line item by line item, and anything that makes you really happy, you highlight in green. Anything that makes you not that happy, you highlight in red. And then things that are like meh, you highlight in yellow. And you'd be surprised at how many things people are spending in that don't really make them happy. So it's like you can cut all of these things that don't really make you happy without affecting the quality of your lifestyle. What about things that people are doing that they absolutely should stop right now if they want to be better with their money?
Getting margin, I think, is just a huge part of winning financially. Again, from a mathematical sense of seeing like dollars in the bank, but also when it comes to your mental health. Like I think there's a level of peace and stress and anxiety that is lowered when you're not living paycheck to paycheck, or you're not, one crisis away from a complete financial emergency where you're like, oh gosh, if I lose a job and lose a paycheck, I'm screwed. That brings a level of anxiousness. So anything that I can lower that is big. So for me, getting out of debt and not having debt payments, I think it's massive, and I know debt is such a normal part of our culture. And, so whether it's, car loans or personal loans or student loans, you can fill in the blank of anything. Challenging that, I just love the exercise of saying, okay, if none of this went out in payments and this was my money, how can I get my money to work for me by investing and doing these things versus sending it to the bank? So I love being debt free and really having a say and autonomy over your life and your money.
The message I'm trying to promote is, start investing early. Go after a percentage of every dollar you make. Do it as soon as you're getting out of school. As soon as you get your first job, you won't even feel it. Like when I got my first job, I was making after school, I was making $35,000 a year in my internship, and I thought I was rich. It was so easy for me to invest 30%. I've been poor my entire life, and so if you can get that going early, you're hardly going to feel it, and you're just basically going to be an automatic millionaire.
What do you wish you could have told your 20-year-old self about money?
I think I would have really tried to, number one, I would have done the work around what was it like for me growing up around money? What was it truly like? And to really think about what messages did I get from my parents and how is this possibly going to play out? Because, all the mistakes I made around money were me living out a script that my parents and grandparents were living.
It's very apparent that the way that you're raised and the discussions that you hear around money impact you later on. So how can the people listening think about how to raise this next generation in a way where those children will grow up and have a good relationship with money?
Yeah, you had mentioned this earlier that money is a huge taboo topic in our culture. And actually studies show that parents would rather talk to their kids about sex than about money, which is crazy. I have 2 kids. You think I wanted to have that conversation with them? So I think the biggest problem is we avoid talking about it. And we avoid talking about it because we're stressed. It's 7 to 8 out of 10 Americans say that money is the biggest source of stress in their lives. And so we don't want to feel stressed, so we want to avoid the topic. And so the biggest mistake we make is not talking about it with our kids. So that's number one. Don't be afraid to talk about it. It's okay to talk about what you did wrong. This is a huge opportunity for you. But just understand this, that young people are picking up messages around money from you constantly by what you say, what you don't say. For example, one of the things I don't think it's a good idea to say is that, well, we can't afford that. I don't think that's a great idea to say it. When a child is wanting something that you don't think you should buy, or if you feel like you can't afford it, it's an opportunity for you to talk about values. Well, we're choosing not to spend our money that way. Why is that? Well, because we're setting aside this money for your education. We're setting aside this money for retirement. What's that? Well, that means where you don't have to worry about me when I'm older. You don't have to take care of me because I'll be able to take care of myself. It's an opportunity for you to talk about values with your kids. The other thing is to really think about how are kids experiencing money. So let's say that you want to instill a savings habit in your child. Do they see you saving money? And the answer is probably not. And so think about a purchase, whether it's a new TV or whatever, and then do something visual, like have a jar, where we're going to put money in here every month, or show them an app where they're seeing the money going in there. Think about how it is you want them to experience it. What lessons do you want to teach them?
That is so good. What about those negative, very hard but inevitable conversations around money, like someone gets laid off? Is that something that your children should be exposed to?
Yeah, so first of all, that's a great question because hard things happen. So the key here, and I've done studies on this too, we call it financial enmeshment, where you give too much information to your kids, because you don't want to do that because it'll make them feel special, but it also makes them feel insecure. And I've worked with a lot of adults whose parents did that, and it led to a whole lifetime of insecurity around money. So you don't want to give them stuff that they can't handle. So you want to come from more of a position of empowerment around hey, look, we're going through a difficult financial time right now. Mom, dad lost their job. And so we're going to be cutting down on things. So kids are going to be looking to you saying, okay, so should I be scared? And then you might want to involve them in something that they can help with. So we're going to start cooking in more. So I want everyone to pick a meal and help with the meal. Lying to your children, they're going to pick up on the fact that there's some stress and some changes. You're downsizing your house. They're going to pick up on this. Process all your emotions with an adult, and then come to your kids with, this is what's happened and this is how we're going to tackle it. Because that's an opportunity for you to show them how you handle difficult financial times.